Hey everybody, how are you? We're the Masked Boomers. I'm Ward,
And I'm Ice Cream Soda.
and it's good to be back. And before we get started, you might ask yourself, "Hey, what are they doing sitting there with the flag still there?" And we were just talking about this earlier, and I made a command decision that given that people are talking about this being Pride Month, if you will, Pride Month, I figure something as important as Memorial Day and people making the ultimate sacrifice, and in terms of pride, I have a lot more pride in the country as it has historically been than I certainly do about what pride is coming to mean in the current culture. So I decided we would leave it up because we're really proud to be American, even though it's a country that is struggling to retain the identity that we grew up loving. So that's why I decided to leave the flags up. And in fact, one of the things that we were discussing before we came on the air is the whole rainbow thing, and apparently I have not seen it or heard about it, but I'll check into it. That there is a person who has started a lady who has started a movement to take back the rainbow to what it originally means. That we shouldn't be letting the LBGTQ plus whatever hijack what that means, given that it was a sign from God that he used as a promise after the flood, and it has a whole lot more importance than certainly being dishonored, if you will, by them hijacking it. She's starting a movement to take it back. We should get over how people are viewing it. We should view it the way we want to view it and treat it that way and just ignore the rest of it, which probably isn't a bad idea, you know because you're not gonna, it ain't about beating people into submission to say that they agree with us instead of them, but we should just treat it that way. And if somebody asks, you tell them. Yeah. What do you think about that?
I think I already do that. I don't acknowledge it as any kind of it's God's. The rainbow, when you see them, they're just so, when you see a real rainbow, it's so majestic. And it's just one of God's really beautiful creations, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
And it's very, it has its own meaning. So they can decide, they can do with it what they want, but that's not going to change my
Yeah,
view
I
of
got
how I
that.
look at it.
You're absolutely right. It's true. You always have viewed it that way. It has nothing to do with someone's sexual identity. Who cares?
Yeah, well,
Who cares?
yeah.
Well, I mean, it's and we were talking. I mean, and every day now has become the same old humdrum distractions and people come
Screaming about
come
their own interests.
oh man, complaining, and I want this and I want that, and and I'm oppressed and you're terrible, and on and on and on it goes. It just gets tiresome. And of course, we've been talking about well, what can we do? And I mean, all we can do is kind of express our dissatisfaction, and of course the only way the current culture, which is so focused on
Jamming it down your throat.
jamming it down your throat and how much money can I get out of it, the only thing we can do is vote with our wallets. We talk about that's one of the
Yeah,
chief ways.
yeah, that's not the only, but that is definitely a way that we can.
Well, it's a way in which the people who are doing it recognize it when you do it, and it's kind of like this. I can't think of any other way to say it. There's no sense trying to punish somebody if they don't realize they're being punished. If they don't feel some effect
Well,
from
they
it.
may not see it right away, but eventually they'll see it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it hasn't taken. I mean, look at across what we're seeing. It hasn't taken long. It didn't take long with Bud Light. It isn't taking long with Target in all their clothed and gay and statement displays. They're paying a price. And who else? There was somebody else. I mean,
You
obviously
mean
the Disney.
recently?
Yeah, recently.
Yeah.
Obviously the Disney stuff, and their market cap, and they continue to lose subscribers from their Disney Plus stuff at an alarming rate. And but the amazing thing is, you'd say, okay, they're going to react to that. Are they going to reverse course? No. In fact, the one of the articles that I saw this past week was reading online was at the park, at the theme parks now, at one of the clothing stores, like whether it's like the Princess Store or something like that,
Right.
clothing store.
Souvenir store.
And they showed a picture of the individual, a guy with a mustache in his dress, welcoming little kids into the store. I mean, so they've got a transvestite basically at the door welcoming little kids in, and parents kind of trundling along. And you say to yourself, so they're all in. They're all in for this. That
Well,
it's going to continue, and they're going to
the
overpower
very
us.
sad thing, and we just experienced somebody with the attitude, is that, oh, it'll all work itself out, and eventually everybody's going to come around and they're going to go along with it.
Or it's going to, no, they'll adjust and everything
It
will
will
be
be
fine.
right? And I just think they're so wrong on some of these things, because a lot of people will never adjust
Well,
to some of this stuff.
well, and nor should they.
No,
Nor should they.
yeah, no.
You know.
But I think that's the attitude now. Oh, if we do it enough and then we hang on and we just keep on doing it, eventually they're going to come back, or they'll come back and buy our product, or they'll get over it and they'll just keep on.
Well, I think I don't know that they look at it that way as much as maybe they start to look at it in terms of them knowing something like, screw them, we are going to force it down their throats. We're not gonna go away. We're gonna punish them. And
But these are people who are about the dollar, and when the dollar starts to drop, then they can jam it down your throat all they think they want. But the bottom line is going to be numbers, and if they're not getting them,
well, yeah,
something's got to give.
we'll see. I mean, you can't have it. You can't have it both ways. But will the consumer, I guess, will people be faithful and stay the course and not relent? And honestly, I think that there's a good chance it'll happen, because if you're doing something like that and you see them going down, them going down acts as more of an encouragement, as far as I'm concerned, to
That you're
continue to
to
stay
do
the
this
right course. It's having an
exactly.
effect, and keep after it.
And some of the things we're talking about, they're not necessities. You don't need Disney.
Right.
You don't need.
They found out they didn't need Bud Light.
Right. There's plenty of other light beers that people can switch over to.
Yeah.
Maybe find out they like.
Hey, I don't know but the best
You
news.
don't need a lot of the products in Target, because there's multiple other places you can get them.
No, that's true.
So
That's true.
these these companies. I mean, it's not that difficult, and a lot of what's being purchased in some of the department stores, or a lot of stores, it's all stuff made in China. I am always amazed every time I pick up something that I think, oh, that's an American
Yeah.
whatever. So like even our flags, a lot of them are made in China. Like, why?
Right.
We can't even make our own flags now.
Well, I mean, you can, and people are going to have to be willing
To pay a little more.
to pay for it. I mean, at least for a bit, because I mean, one of the things, I think we talked about this way back when. This is a classic boomer story. Remember back in the as Datsuns and Nissans and Toyotas. Remember, the Japanese cars just started to enter the country, and
they didn't even have factories in the country.
No, they didn't. And we were, and there was all this, the furor, and then as they started to gain market share, and of course the American Motors, General Motors, Ford, would try to blunt their influence, and people use, and the same thing happened in the industry that I was in the in some of the electronics business. On the periphery, everybody was saying, "Oh no, well we can't compete." All people did was complain about the competition, and we can't compete, and they do this and they do that, they pay their people less, they don't, whatever excuse they wanted to give. But then at some point, and I don't know who specifically was responsible for it, somebody said, enough's enough. Why don't we just focus on doing, competing with them? Just focus on doing, use our technology, use our brains, use our creativity. And we did it. And by gosh, we could compete with them. And we could compete successfully with them for a time. And I think, unfortunately, and then, and for a while, we continued that way. And I remember that very specifically. But then that was Japan. And then once, however, it started to shift to China. I mean, and that was nothing more than corporate people searching to find a place to get cheap product so that they could still sell it and cheap. Well, they could fatten their profits. That's it.
Yeah.
And of course, then you're back into, and having been in the business world for so many years, that's when people start to come up with the terms like, when you hear them today, the stakeholders. Okay, I'm not advocating for anything other than basically a free market. I mean, people will seek what they need to do where it's most competitive. But by the same token, people need to realize, as you point out, that there's a certain amount of you surrender influence, you surrender your well-being. I mean, the fact that I think we talked about this, medicines.
I was about to go there. I'm sorry, how hard is it to create a pill?
Yeah.
Really? You got to send that overseas and let them control it?
That's right. That's true.
Amazing.
No, that's true. And the sad part,
drug companies. Well, all through the States.
But you know what? But the proof positive that there is no difference lies in the fact that today you can buy identical pills in one country for this much, and here it's going to cost you this much.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with anything other than them deciding what they're going to charge and what they can get here. Yeah.
And they've gotten so out of control now that they've got people having to choose whether they can take the medication or find another way to deal with whatever the issue is.
I still think our friend, our neighbor, who recently discovered that he needs to be taking a
expensive
Eliquis blood thinner,
which here is
here it costs you $500 a month.
Right, if you're not on some sort of
right. Program. It costs $500 a month, and he discovered that, and they happen to spend some amount of time each year in south of the border,
right,
in Mexico. And when he found out that he needed to take it, he did some checking down there. It's like a fraction of the cost. I mean, hideously different, just a few, if you will, pennies on the dollar compared to what it is up here. So he basically bought himself a year's supply, and will re-up each time he goes back down there. So the fact is that in real dollars and cents today, the ability to sell it reasonably here still exists. It's the companies, big pharma, big pharma, and the government. I mean, so the government's shouldn't protect, because screw it. You'd be a smart. It's big pharma who is hosing us now. I mean, it's the companies.
Well, yeah,
absolutely,
because they can do it, but it's also the insurance program, the health insurance programs,
Well,
Medicare, Medicaid, they're controlling.
everybody's getting a piece. Everyone's getting a piece of the action. I don't. And that's the thing. And we just, I mean, we need to do that. Anyway, one of the things we've got something up here, and this is a different twist. I don't know how many folks are aware that it's highly likely there won't be any presidential debates at all. That is, no debates. I mean, obviously, not even from a primary standpoint. Of
Well,
course,
they actually have to talk about what's happening,
well,
what they're doing or not doing.
or giving positions exactly, and discuss in detail. Well,
Where
the
they
problem with
stand on
well, that's the problem. But the problem we were talking earlier. Has the current way debates are run? Does it really give you that information?
What information? No, because the questions are all orchestrated by who's ever controlling the debates.
Exactly.
The debaters, it's the person who's asking them.
So
those are very carefully orchestrated to avoid certain topics.
That's one aspect, and the other, of course, is the current society, the way everyone's nose is in their phone or just looking for sound bites. The guy who makes the most pithy comment, that's all that you're told. You don't really learn anything meaningful about what the person's actually going to do.
Well, and the media will control it. They'll leave out what they want to, and they'll put in what they don't want to make the person look good or bad.
Precisely. So one of the things that people have proposed, other than simply not having them, and that might be a smart way to go. Don't have those, but do something different. How, in fact, someone earlier when we were talking referenced a position that Thomas Sowell has taken on it, which is you'd be better off having a very lengthy, detailed interview with each person, each candidate, where they're asked questions about certain topics. What would you do? And really explain their positions and what they would do and how they would do it, and use portions of that, and then broadcast your own, because people's attention span is such that they're not, they're interested in the soundbite. They're not going to sit there and listen to somebody talk for 2 hours. But if you can create some things, segment them and post them online, get them out, you can start to do it. And so it seems like the person who's going to be able to accomplish those things and get meaningful positions in front of people in a format where they're learning something, the voters will be much better informed than they ever have. Because the current state of affairs, look at the boneheads that people keep voting for. And that's while we have debates and while we have sound bites. I mean, people have absolutely no clue who and what they're voting for, as indicated by the people we were talking with last week. Like, oh, no, things will just settle down and they'll be fine. They know absolutely nothing about what's going on.
I'm not sure what the answer is there. Sometimes the reactions of the debate, I mean, the problem is some of them really get out of hand, then they become demeaning to each other, and that's never good. But sometimes you can get a glimpse of really what the real person is like based on some of the things said or not said in the debates, questions they will answer or won't answer. Of course, it's very hard to have a debate when you're not going to answer any of the questions. But fact that they've had that certain people have been given they knew the questions that were coming before they were even asked them, like all this stuff that's happening in the background that is totally unfair.
Right.
For somebody to be thoroughly prepared for what's going to be asked, and somebody else hasn't got a clue.
Well, and so one of the as we were just saying, one of the things that people think might be able to address that and help people get informed, and in a fashion that they can listen to it, is as we've got on our screen now. It says, like, for instance, Trump has a personal YouTube channel. Okay. And what he can do and is doing is posting some videos. And then like those, and you want to take a look, we could take as does DeSantis, right? Because I mean, obviously he was, announcing his campaign and now he'll do the same thing. And if, all right, if I don't really care if you necessarily are duking it out in person, while there might be some entertainment value in that. I'm more interested in what's your positions on each of these things, and if it takes them making their own video, stating their position clearly where it's posted, so that a consumer can look at it and go back and look at it even.
Yeah, you know what? Here's the thing that bothers me. Politicians are very famous for saying, "Oh, when you're doing a campaign, you say a lot of things you'll never do and you don't mean."
Well, and that's why something like that,
Well,
posting things,
so what is everybody gonna? Is anybody gonna fact check what they say?
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, like you can't speak for everybody, but I mean, I'm not. I for one, if I wish to be informed, there's no excuse for people to not be well informed if you have access to videos and things like that. So maybe we could take a look at a couple, and I think that we're able to. I think we'll be able to pull this up on the chat. Yeah, and some from the chat, someone mentions that not having debates is a benefit to dictator Biden. Can't argue that at all. I would
You cannot.
wholly.
That is the whole primary reason for not having debate.
Well, because if you really get a glimpse of how absolutely screwed up he is, and cognitively gone.
Well, last time they hit him in the basement.
Well, I mean,
because they claimed the whole COVID thing.
oh no,
We're not going to have it this year.
But it absolutely, I can't disagree with that statement that the least exposure, the better, because that means he never has to be confronted. And so how do you? I mean, so you're up against. How do you expose Biden and still inform people so that they know the difference? Because at the end of the day, you just don't know anything about what Biden thinks about anything. He just hides.
Well, yeah, and even if he's on a debate, I'll have there'll be a teleprompter.
Well,
that I'll have to read.
Well,
which will be obvious.
Well, which is to your point. That's why I think people have said, like Trump has said, "Hey, I don't care. I don't want. Why be in a debate where everything else is rigged for the other guy?
It's all control."
Although I don't think Joe can't move fast enough. Even his mind can't move fast enough even to read a teleprompter at this stage and get it right. I mean, you saw the article this past week, right, where his cheat sheet cards have been exposed, where it says step by step what he's supposed to. It says, "You," capital letters, "you sit in your seat." I mean, it's got to tell him to go sit in his own chair and go down each one. Call on this reporter and ask them this question. I mean, it's frightening.
Well,
anyway.
He needs to be through. There needs to be a panel of qualified doctors to assess his.
It can happen.
No, I mean,
I agree.
I don't see how that they can excuse that.
Well, you have to. You
can't have someone who.
You should just make it. You should make it mandatory that people running for certain levels of office, or certainly at least the presidency, has to take.
And it has to take a cognitive test. No, it has to be his personal position that does it.
No, you have to do something. One, I saw in fact, it was just earlier today, and I haven't read it, so I don't know the details. But apparently, somebody made a speech at a conservative organization this past week or two, and they proposed, and to a standing ovation, they proposed that all elected officials, okay, I mean, you could do it at certain levels, but elected officials should have to take, maybe once a year, a mandatory lie detector test.
Oh, that's a good one.
I mean, I got to tell you, there's a lot of appeal. Oh no, well, you can't trust. Yeah, well, I think it would be pretty telling that to your point about people saying and doing whatever, but mandatory lie detector tests for elected officials at a certain
But
So
you know what? And I don't think that Congress should be able to control. I think term limits, age limits, those kinds of things should be put out for general voting. It shouldn't be that they vote it for themselves, because obviously they're not going to say that they can only serve so many terms and then they have to wait and then maybe try again 4 years or 6 years later.
right.
Like, you shouldn't be allowed to go and never leave Washington, D.C.
Oh, I mean, yeah, these people who have done it argue that because now they're so experienced and
Experience,
so
which is
knowledgeable, that
correct.
of course, they just know how to beat the crap out of the system and benefit them and enrich
Well,
themselves.
I'm really, yeah, yes,
It,
enrich themselves. And then you also get concerned with how many of the new people that come in are basically told, you do this or
oh,
you won't be here next term.
every single one,
Yeah. So
every single
is
one.
that fair? No. There's only a few that have had the guts to stand up and not be pushed around.
Well, yeah, I mean, and yeah, that's true. And we have yet to see necessarily what if there will be fallout or won't be fallout. But I think there's more, and that's why you can't be silent, because at the end of the day, people need to scream about that stuff. And you know what? It might violate some decorum or established precedent, which is exactly why we're in the position that we're in. People have played too nicely. I'm not advocating for people to be
Well, nobody's
crazy, but
demonstrating.
by the same token, if you just sit there silently and let people beat your brains in, I mean, come on,
Right.
really? You know?
Right.
And so, to your point, some of the like that group of congressmen who were willing to take on
Some of these big
McCarthy
issues.
before he was elected speaker and force them at least to do something, because like this debt ceiling thing's a perfect example. It's a
He's
uniparty
caving.
bill. Well, it's a uniparty bill. There's 149 Republicans that voted with the Democrats to pass this thing. I mean, it's a wonderful cut. We're going to cut $1 trillion out of the deficit over whatever time. It'll never happen.
No.
And of course, the debt is $30 trillion. It is a proverbial pea hole in the snow. It will make no difference. And they're going to tout it like it's a big deal. That has to be overhauled, man. It just all has to be overhauled. It's just they're all the same. Anyway, let's watch the first video of Trump, and then we'll go from there. So we'll turn it over to the technical wizards, and let's take a look at that video. And this is the most recent video from Trump. Where's that?
3 decades before my election, drug overdose deaths increased every single year. Under my leadership, we took the drug and fentanyl crisis head on, and we achieved the first reduction in overdose deaths in more than 30 years. I also proudly signed the SUPPORT Act, the largest investment ever in combating the opioid epidemic. Sadly, under Joe Biden, our hard-won progress has been surrendered along with the surrender of our southern border. It's such a shame. Now fentanyl and other ultra-deadly poisons are pouring into our country unchecked, stealing more than 100,000 American lives every single year, and many people think that real number is 300,000 to 400,000. Joe Biden's record is one of death, destruction, and misery in communities all across our nation. When I'm back in the White House, I will take action on day one to end this horrific plague and save American lives. Joe Biden will never solve the drug overdose crisis because he is actively destroying our border. What he has done to our border, we had the safest border in the history of our country, and now we have the worst border probably anywhere in the world, including third world countries. That's why I have previously announced I will impose a full naval embargo on the drug cartels and deploy military assets to inflict maximum damage on cartel operations. I will insist on the full cooperation of neighboring governments to dismantle the trafficking and smuggling networks in our region, and I will ask Congress to ensure that drug dealers, kingpins, and human traffickers receive the death penalty. At the same time, I will direct federal law enforcement here in the United States to take down the gangs and organized street crime that distribute these deadly narcotics on a local level. They are killing our people. They are poisoning our beautiful children. I will permanently designate fentanyl as a federally controlled substance, and I will tell China that if they do not clamp down on the export of fentanyl's chemical precursors, they will pay a steep price. I had a deal worked out with President Xi. They weren't going to be sending any more, and they were going to impose the death penalty on those that made it in China. But with a rigged election, that ended. Attacking the supply of these deadly drugs will be just the beginning. We must also do more to end the scourge of addiction here at home. Among the most important steps we can take is to strengthen the pillars that give life, meaning, and hope for those struggling with addiction, particular work, faith, and family. We need work, faith, and family. My administration will support measures to make it easier for those suffering from addiction to seek treatment without losing their jobs. We will forge new public-private partnerships for companies willing to provide job opportunities and skills training for former addicts. We will expand federal support for faith-based counseling, treatment, and recovery programs, recognizing that we are going to need God's help to steer our country out of this crisis. Finally, we will ensure that if a parent, child, spouse, or other relative needs to take time to care for a loved one fighting to overcome addiction, they are more easily able to take advantage of the family leave program, so important. When I'm president, we will not rest until we have ended the drug addiction crisis in America. We will win. It will happen. We have to win, though, in 2024, because our country is going to hell. Thank you.
What do you think about that? That's the first time I've seen that. What do you think?
Digesting it. Well, I think he's right on with a lot of what he said.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think I ever fully appreciated till the past year and a half or so, post, if you will, 2 years post COVID, the extent to which fentanyl has done the damage that it has.
Well, they hit it all under the whole COVID stuff.
Yeah, well, I think you're right, and of course, the sad story that our neighbor told us when he moved in, losing his son with a fentanyl laced medication.
Yeah.
And as you hear, and I don't dispute necessarily the fact that they talk about 170 or 200,000 the people a year dying from the fentanyl overdose. I think it probably is much higher. I think you're right. I think it's been hidden or couched under a lot of other stuff.
Well, look at how many things that they termed as a COVID death, which could have been a fentanyl death. We don't know. They died during the whole pandemic.
Well, you're actually
Car
right.
accidents, motorcycle
Actually,
accidents.
a couple of things. You're right.
People that died of normal everyday things that regular people were dying of, all of a sudden now became COVID deaths.
Right. Well, and remember how we were always subjected to the death toll.
Yes.
The
number always flashing every news all day long. It told you.
Exactly. And the fact that has completely gone away. Yeah. And the simple, I think the reality is, depending upon where you drill down and find the information, using probably stricter criteria, not even the same criteria they used, there have been far more deaths under Joe than there ever were under Trump. And on top of that, you're right, on top of that, the fentanyl deaths. I mean, I wouldn't doubt if people will fess up to 100,000 plus or 170,000 plus, it probably is 300,000 or 400,000.
Oh, there's a lot of people that don't want people to know that's what their loved one died of.
Well, that's true. Did you? I it's on television, commercial. Um, you Narcan, that's the stuff for overdoses. It's
Oh,
the
if you
thing
can,
that you give someone if they have an overdose to save them. They're going to start selling it over the counter. You can go I'm not arguing for or against. I'm simply saying that another money making opportunity, and now you don't make that stuff available over the counter unless there is there's an extraordinary need for it. I mean, because again, fentanyl overdoses or any overdose.
how much is that going to cost?
I don't know the answer to that. I didn't look up
So
the
somebody's going to make a profit off of, instead of taking this stuff off the market or restricting it from coming into the country, let's let people take it, and now they'll just
Well,
take this injection.
I'm not sure that, I mean, they would, of
And,
course, no one would ever say it that way, but in effect, if you're not doing anything to take the stuff, stop it from coming over the border. I agree, have stuff that help people from overdoses, because that still
well,
needs to be
some
done.
people, it happens to them and they don't even know that they've been,
Well, that's,
that's what they're
yeah,
taking.
that's the sadness of what it does. And it's a nasal spray.
Great.
It's a Narcan, it's gonna be a nasal spray. And,
It's kind of like the unwanted pregnancies when you could take something to prevent it, but you don't.
yeah, I'm just trying to find out who's selling this stuff. Maybe that's their.
Mm.
Anyway, it doesn't. Oh,
2020.
anyway, yeah. So that's it's emergent devices. That somebody from
Well, it's not
From-
only 2020 elections
from
that were
Pennsylvania.
rigged.
Yeah.
There's a few more. It's
I
2020.
wish the 2020 elections weren't rigged.
Yeah.
I absolutely, in from the chat, Prodigal Son of Fans says, I wish the 2020 elections weren't rigged. Uh, well,
We were headed down a bad.
the 2020
Slippery
elections
slope.
were rigged. The
But those
2020
didn't
the
help.
2022
Were rigged.
elections. Look at the ongoing stuff,
Carrie Lake.
particularly out of Kerry Lake, out of
Only
Arizona.
because she persisted.
Well, she still is. It's still, that battle is still being fought. And part of when you see for obvious reasons, we know they don't want Biden exposed in public on debates. But the other thing that it tells you, not granted, no one seems to be terribly worried on that side. And I think they're not terribly worried because they've been working on how they're going to steal the next one for the past
Well,
several years.
they've already been able to do it so easily.
And I just think it's entirely likely it's going to happen. It's going to happen again and again. You got the uniparty. You got the uniparties. Oh no, people like Pence who say, "Oh no, it wasn't rigged." Are you kidding me?
Here's the thing, though. Even with the Kerry Lake situation, okay, so she proves that it was rigged. Is anybody going to change anything?
Well,
nope.
Well, that's the problem.
She's not going to be put in place as rightfully was she governor, running for governor?
Well, she did, and she got beaten.
Yeah, no, but I think they pretty substantially proved she did
They
not.
proved,
That it
well,
was rigged.
again, this is all of this. Having knowledge that what occurred, but having it legally decided so that you can reverse something, two different things, and that hasn't happened.
Well, part of the problem is just because what's been heard has been in the state that's controlled by the Dems.
Well, the person she ran against was the Secretary of State at the time of the election,
right?
Katie Hobbs, and of course now she's the governor. So
she's controlling everything that's happening.
Absolutely, it's just kind of like it's just like the national level.
Well, it's like
Joe
Trump
controls.
being tried in New York City.
Yeah, exactly.
But really,
we know
you
how
think he's going to get a fair trial?
It's just like the January 6th guys. You think they're going to get
because they're being tried in DC.
Look at what they're doing to them. Yeah. Look what they've done to them. And oh gosh, this opens up the whole.
Oh boy, I mean, there's a whole nother can of
worms. Well, no, because the like that guy who ran the guy they tried to pitch as a white supremacist, who ran his U-Haul truck into the barrier in front of the White House last week. and his name is Saya Havaranthas or something like that. And they spread out like a Nazi flag. They're trying to put him as, and now because it didn't fly, they dropped all the charges against him.
That would never.
Whereas,
You
could you imagine if that was me,
Yeah,
a
a white male,
Anglo-Saxon, yes,
Christian conservative male, Republican Party. Yeah.
I would already be in the gulag.
Oh yeah, you'd be locked up.
I
Oh
would
yeah.
already be in the gulag.
No.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, it's definitely a party-based country.
Okay. All right. Well, we saw that one Trump thing, and I liked that video.
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward. We're going to take a break, folks, and when we come back, we're going to watch the latest of YouTube videos from DeSantis and from Biden. So we'll have a range of comparisons from all three. Okay. So we'll be back in a few minutes. Thanks. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. And as we said, now we're going to take a look at, having watched the Trump video, we're going to watch the latest YouTube videos from both DeSantis and Joe Biden, and then we'll discuss them.
Will there ever be any other Democrat videos that we'll see?
I suppose if we get some, I guess the only guy that I know is in the race is Kennedy. I do not know if he has posted any. Maybe that's something we could look into.
Yeah, because it'd be interesting to hear what somebody else in that party might agree or disagree with.
Well,
And
let's take a
talk
look
about
and see what we get. Let's see what Mr. DeSantis has to say
All right.
first.
Excuse me.
Bless you. All
Florida
right.
Governor Ron DeSantis is going to be in Des Moines to kick off his campaign.
What he did in Florida, he can do for the rest of the country.
He has the courage, the fortitude.
Leadership is about doing what's right, even in the face of intense criticism, even when people are coming at you. We in the state of Florida held the line when freedom hung in the balance, and we have produced a record of accomplishment that we would put up against anybody in this country. We must have the courage to lead, and we must have the strength to win, because the stakes couldn't be higher.
I think he's the right person at the right time for this job.
You know that he will never back down.
We need to have this American comeback.
Ron DeSantis always stands up for what's right. He never backs down. He says what he's going to do, and he gets it done.
So as president, I pledge to be an energetic executive who will spit nails and fight the needed battles every single day. We will bring back our great American comeback. Thank you all. God bless you so much.
What do you think about that one?
I'm not sure he talked enough about what he did to make things change.
Oh, he didn't talk about anything.
Okay,
Oh,
I
he
thought
did.
maybe it was me, then I
No,
knew something.
I was listening intently. It was very much the giant vanilla generalizations about I'll do this, I'll do that.
He's really taken a stand on issues in Florida, and I give him a lot of credit for some of the stuff he stood up for.
He didn't
But he didn't talk about
he
it.
didn't say it. Yeah,
Right.
He didn't
Tell us
say
what
it.
you did.
You know,
I
I think
you're afraid of offending someone because you stood up for things that some of these people
well, you know what, yeah, if you talk
are
about
gonna like just tolerate.
no, if you say he always does what's right, then say, and
What it is.
here's three examples.
Yeah, here's some
of
examples.
what I did. It's like his people don't know how to communicate in the sense of, oh, you say, okay, here we are. They make this general kind of thing, but it didn't give you any specific information that said, that's why I want this guy. This is where he stood up. This is what he
did.
specifically did
Exactly.
on this issue, on this issue, on this issue. And if they don't, if they go with the generalization stuff like that, that's shit.
That's very
He
vanilla.
could be he could be running for anything, for any office from any party, and that speech would
Yeah, it's a little too vanilla.
nothing there. That ain't gonna get it done.
And he's
Not even for the uninformed.
well, because a lot of them don't even know why he's been
Yeah,
criticized for what he's done.
Let's see to borrow a line that Simon Cowell used on American Idol when he saw this really big guy, Jonathan, come out. He leaned over on a hot mic and he says to somebody, just when you thought it couldn't get any worse. And this guy turned out to be a fantastic opera singer.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what's going on. Just as we thought videos couldn't get worse, now we have Joe. I don't think we'll be disappointed that it's going to get worse. Let's see what Mr. Biden has to say. Oh, this is on the bipartisan, this is on the debt ceiling deal. Here it comes.
Sorry to keep you waiting, but we've got good news. We've got Just spoke with Speaker McCarthy, and we've reached a bipartisan budget agreement that we're ready to move to the full Congress. And I think it's a really important step forward, and it takes the threat of catastrophic default off the table, protects our hard-earned and historic economic recovery, and the agreement also represents a compromise, which means no one got everything they want. But that's the responsibility of governing. And this is a deal that's good news, I believe, you'll see, for the American people. The agreement prevents the worst possible crisis, a default for the first time in our nation's history. An economic recession, retirement accounts devastated, millions of jobs lost. It also protects key priorities and accomplishments and values that congressional Democrats and I have fought long and hard for. Investing in America's agenda that's creating good jobs in communities throughout the country. It protects Social Security, Medicare, and veterans, and so much more. The Speaker and I made it clear from the start that the only way forward was a bipartisan agreement. That agreement now goes to the United States House and to the Senate. I strongly urge both chambers to pass that agreement. Let's keep moving forward on meeting our obligations and building the strongest economy in the history of the world. I'll take a few questions.
President, you said at the beginning that the debt ceiling was not negotiable. Isn't that what you've just done here? And isn't that what
you guys, look, we're not negotiating the debt ceiling. Here's the deal. They passed the debt ceiling, and they said they'd only do it on condition that it have all these cuts in it. I said, I'm not going to do that. You pass the debt ceiling, period. I'll negotiate with you on the cuts, what you say, what's going to happen, what the budget's going to look like. That's what we are negotiating in order to get to them deciding that they're going to go along with a new debt ceiling, meaning that it's not attached. So something totally different attached than was attached before. So if you want to try to make it look like I made some compromise in the debt ceiling, I didn't. I made a compromise on the budget.
That's what they wanted, is you to make a compromise on the budget, and that's what you've done, even though you haven't gone as far as they wanted. Isn't that right?
Sure, yeah. Well, can you think of an alternative?
Mr. President, what do you say to members of your own party who say you've made too many concessions in this deal?
They'll find I didn't.
Mr. President, on your allies and adversaries to America, would you be willing to say about what you think this process said to those adversaries and allies? You have a deal now, but what does the process say? What does the struggle say?
Well, it says we've been through this more than once, and it's just the nature of the way we handle the deficit and handle whether we're going to, each year, going to pay our debts. And it's happened more than once. It will probably happen again, but it's not going to happen at least for another 2 years here. And I don't think beyond that it won't either.
Mr. President, do you think it's time for the U.S. to get rid of the debt limit? That this is, for the reasons you just laid out?
No, I think it would cause more controversy getting rid of the debt limit, although I am exploring the idea that we would, at a later date, a year or two from now, decide whether or not the 14th Amendment, how that actually would impact on whether or not you need to do the debt limit every year. But that's another day. Thank you.
Mr. President, do you believe Speaker McCarthy has the vote, and did he negotiate in good faith?
I think he negotiated with me in good faith. He kept his word. He said what he would do. He did what he said he'd do. And I have no idea whether he had the votes. I expect he does. I don't think he would have made the agreement.
Mr. President, do you have a comment on the elections in Turkey? Have you spoken with President Erdogan?
I have not spoken with him yet.
Do you have a comment?
Some of your Democratic colleagues are saying that this policy will lead some people to go hungry. What is your response to that?
It's ridiculous assertion.
Do you wish you started these negotiations sooner?
No, it wouldn't make any difference.
Mr. President, is financial aid for Ukraine secured in your new budget?
Yeah, no, it's not.
All right. And then there he goes, our illustrious leader. I didn't compromise. I didn't compromise on a debt ceiling. I compromised on the budget. Well, no, I didn't. It's not attached. I mean, I can't. The middle part of it, I don't understand.
Gibberish.
Well, something happened, and something is going to get passed. I think it's like it's happened over the past couple of years. He doesn't care what it is. He just is going to stand up and claim credit because something passed.
Yeah,
that's all.
Yeah.
And He's not worried about whatever the fallout is, like someone being hungry or not, etc. You know.
Well, I think this is just to continue to run the government, right?
Well, the debt ceiling. Well, the debt. Yes,
but that doesn't stop him from saying, "Oh,
borrows-
we've got to send so much more
The
money
debt's-
to Ukraine."
No, exactly, because they sent 300 million more to Ukraine this week.
Yeah. So
The debt ceiling allows the government to borrow even more money to pay its debts. So the deficit is increasing directly as a result of this. We are borrowing money to pay the bills. That's what the debt ceiling is. The debt, we're allowing the amount of debt we have to go up. Instead of it being 40 trillion, now it'll be 40 plus.
and we've never
trillion.
had a debt like this.
Oh,
ever.
no.
In
And,
the
and
history
every
of the country.
and every single one of them, every single one of the presidents have over the past 20 years has contributed to this process.
Increasing this.
You know. Anyway, so that is the latest. If stepping back from without micro focusing on each one, if you were somebody who didn't know any of these guys, and I know that sounds like you have to be living under a rock, but you gotta wonder, or you're from another country and you see those 3 videos. I mean, you say to yourself, yeah, I mean, there's no comparison about who the guy is that has command of the facts, has whether you agree with it or not, has a clear agenda as to what he's going to do, and specifically said, here's how I'm going to address it. For instance, okay, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to ask you, what did Biden say? Where you said, "Oh, there's dictator Biden right there."
Oh no, when he talks about the 14th Amendment,
Oh,
what he's trying to do is say that if you recall, he mentioned that, oh, we don't have to go through this every year. What he wants to do is, and I don't remember the exact wording of it, but constitutional scholars have made it very clear that the 14th Amendment doesn't allow the president or somebody to unilaterally say, okay, I'm raising the debt ceiling.
okay.
Okay, it has to go through the congressional process, the appropriation of funds, and that kind of things always has been by the Constitution afforded the Congress, not the president. So he wants to use this thing, like the 14th
He's
Amendment.
implying he wants to change it.
Use the 14th, not change it, but use the 14th Amendment to usurp authority that the 14th Amendment doesn't give him to just raise it. It's non-negotiable, but I'm negotiating it because we won't hit the default because it's the new default. From Hacker Nova. I guess he must be getting, maybe Kamala is writing his.
That sounds like something that would have come out of her mouth.
It's non-negotiable, but I'm negotiating it because we won't hit the default because it's a new default, and but it's not the old one because now it doesn't have anything attached, but now it's got something new attached. I mean, yeah, just gibberish, absolute gibberish, and there are bright people
that actually buy it,
that will look at that and say, "Oh man, that was brilliant." You know, I mean, you know that's being said. It's just incredible to me, just incredible. But I didn't negotiate on the debt ceiling. I negotiated on it. He is a dummy. He is prodigal. He absolutely is. I mean, and you know what? If it wasn't so sad that he was our leader, you know, you could laugh at it, but it's frightening.
Do you realize the skits that people could do if they were free to do what they used to be able to do? Like, I think back on years of
when Saturday Night Live was Saturday Night Live,
when that show was on, things that they used to say and do and laugh, but unfortunately it's not funny anymore because this guy's really sick.
I'll tell you, folks, there's a couple of the boomer shows that were way ahead of the time, and if you have the chance to look them up and look at old things, just Laughing with Dan Rowan and Dick Martin.
Man,
and the other one, there's another one that I'm going to go back to, which was a satire, and I think it was David Frost. This is way back. That was the week that was, and they would look back at the news in retrospectively for the week. And you talk about intelligent humor. and pithy stuff and edgy stuff for
Yes.
its day. That was the week that was, and Rowan and Martin's laughing, and they were.
But Saturday
they
Night
were
Live 2 years ago,
when they would go after everybody.
they
Yeah.
didn't leave anybody alone.
Yeah, but that changed.
But
That
that
changed a long time.
that doesn't happen anymore.
That changed with.
I guess unless you're ratting on the people that they want you to rat on.
Well,
But you certainly can't do it across the board anymore.
yeah, it's of course, yeah. I mean, when you think of some of the stuff that's been going on with all those people. Oh, that was where I had a thought that flashed through my mind, and talking about some of the stuff that's going on and why people are getting pretty upset on things, and that the Epstein list
Oh,
of
boy.
clients has started to leak out.
Certainly.
And things, yeah, that is a pretty, that's got a pretty extensive list of celebrity. My favorite is the guy who the BlackRock CEO, who's all about, oh yeah, go ahead in the deficit. I mean, he made several visits to Epstein Island. And I got to tell you, so I mean, it's all connected. I mean, the short of it is, I mean, Epstein got himself killed because he tried to blackmail too many people, and and
Or he didn't necessarily, but they knew he had plenty of stuff he could have used.
well, and he would have, anyway. So, well, anyway, so I mean, it's clear that when you look at those videos, that Trump. You can disagree with him, but he's clear on what he wants to do. I have always thought when he first mentioned it years ago, and I think now you say, let me go back. One of the comments from the chat was that I'm so sorry that the 2020 election was rigged. Generally, I would agree with you, but I have to say this. I think without the last 2 years and the utter debacle and the way in which the Democrats have overplayed their hand as they usually do, the way Pelosi behaved, the way that they've shown how they want to destroy the country. The people who have surfaced, who we all thought we could trust, that really are all part of the establishment, Bill Barr, Pence, all these people that are in the uniparty, if you will.
Yeah.
Okay, you wouldn't have even understood at least I wouldn't have. I don't speak for everybody else. I wouldn't have understood the depth of how bad it was unless we had
I still don't
Joe
think
Biden.
I still don't know the depth. You're leaving out the FBI and CIA.
Well, no. I'm saying like the stuff going on
All
with
this-
Christopher Wray right now.
all this stuff.
Right?
Yeah.
And even today, Christopher Wray wasn't. They said Cummins said that he wasn't going to get that document from Christopher Wray. He didn't even admit he had it until he said, "Well, we've already seen it," and that's when Wray said, "Well, I'll give it to you, or you can look at it."
Oh, they've already seen it?
No, they had already seen it before they talked with Ray, and he didn't know that. So he was denying still its existence and saying you could see a redacted version. And then he said, we don't want the redacted. We want the whole thing. And by the way, we've already seen it. And so they hit him with something he wasn't ready for. So whoever their whistleblower is has put in their hands the information. But my point is that without all of that happening, and without Biden getting in, as terrible as it has been, and
this would have ever been exposed.
they would have continued to sail along, and we wouldn't have known anything because Joe is such an incompetent, and they all have so overplayed their hands. We wouldn't have known otherwise. So you know what? I mean, it's the old classic thing scripturally of, people mean it for evil. God doesn't mean he still can't use those bad circumstances to bring about something that is his wishes.
True, but the other problem is that the more that we know and the more that doesn't change,
well, that's the thing that moves us closer and closer to a culmination of, hey, do I think that I'm going to say it out loud. Do I think that a civil war is possible? It already is one. It's not a hot war yet, but it's a civil war. It's a culture war. It's a civil war. Of course. I mean, look at the way the both sides are going after each other.
Well, the thing that gets me is they catch people in lies. Oh, too bad. Throw them in the hand.
Well, no, the governing
Not going to do anything.
the fox is guarding the hen house. The fox is guarding the hen house. As long as you got that guy in office,
Yeah, as long as if you accuse someone, then he can pardon them.
I mean, it's got a chance. And even if Trump or DeSantis or somebody else gets elected, I mean, we'll probably see another layer. The people who are trapped fight harder. They don't back off. It's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. That's why I say you got a real shot at this thing becoming people are. How far do you think we are from people starting to shoot each other? They already are. And
Right now they're killing each other for control of their
fiefdom.
Yes.
Whatever it is.
Yeah. Don't cross my drug sales, or I'm going to wipe you out.
Well, I started to say the thing that I've always supported about Trump is use of military to go after the cartels and go after those people that are killing our country, and tell Mexico this is just the way it's going to be. I mean, I don't have any problem with that at all. I think we have to, because the border is open. We are being invaded, by the drug dealers and the gangs, and you do need the military. You do need people to go and inflict damage on them. We're not talking about diplomatic. You need to go kill them is what has to happen. Cartels they are not diplomatically inclined.
Yeah.
I mean, you read stories of all these bodies that are turning up along the border and how they decapitate people in public and kill them and hang them up. They do things to just absolutely terrorize folks. You have to eliminate them. I mean, it's as rational people, it's hard to conceive that people can be wired that way and be that way. And it's all about money.
It's not only it's not only about drugs. It's the sex trafficking.
That's
child
probably
abuse.
The sex trafficking is probably, and child trafficking is human trafficking is probably as big an industry, if not bigger than the drug industry. And when you're letting 86, I think, what was it last month, 86,000 people into the country, you don't even know where they go. They have an app on the phone, apparently, that people they signed up for, and they use this app. It's kind of like, oh, okay, if you registered, here's your court date. You just show up and off you go wherever you want, because now you're registered. It's insane. Vaccinated, unvaccinated, that doesn't make a difference anymore, nor should it. I mean, the vaccinations are
You'll never know how these people, if these people could even sign their names.
Yeah.
You'll never know what their actual signatures are.
And the last, we've got here, this could be interesting, and I have to admit, don't know what it is. The last video that we're going to look at right now is from an American rapper named Tom MacDonald. And the caveat that we have here, and I'm going to have to make sure that it's probably directed at me. We have to be careful not to judge the book by its cover. So, although we're going to be watching a video, we probably ought to concentrate on the substance of what's being said as well. So let's see the rapper Tom MacDonald. I like his slogan already. I think I may have seen. I think I may be familiar with him.
Whenever somebody asks me to do something.
There we go. Pretty popular.
Hey guys, I don't think the whole Build Back Better thing is working. And we don't have to make America great again, but can we at least make America not a communist third world country charading as a democracy overrun by radical, genderless psychopaths led by a feeble old man suffering from dementia who's ushering us into World War III? again? I mean, I'd settle for that at this point. Just think about it. Hey guys.
That actually is a pretty succinct
Yeah.
and clear message. And you know what? That probably represents a vast majority of people. Don't let us go any further into the abyss. Unsettled.
Yeah.
Unsettled for not being overrun and not getting into World War III. And I mean, you can't argue with anything. It's short, it's direct, and I mean, it doesn't mean that America's going to, again, it doesn't have to be America. In one way, I like it. There's a humility about it. It's not like, oh, America's wonderful. We need to be the greatest again. No, I'd settle for this. Just give us the country in a semblance of what we all want, with borders, with some measure of, of sanity.
Well, and not having a small majority decide they're going to control the whole country.
Well, it's not the small majority. It's 4% of the population telling the rest of us how we're going to live.
Yeah, and what we're going to accept. And
Yes.
what pronouns we're going to use.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, that is a. If you played that soundbite, played that clip. And I can get over the tats and stuff. That doesn't bother me. But if you played that clip and no one saw it and just heard it, you'd have universal agreement from a lot of people on the conservative side. He's not the no. I don't have any problem with the.
That's a choice.
With the tats, that's his choice. It's
freedom.
Freedom. Exactly, it's freedom.
What you want.
So I am. I'd settle. The only thing that strikes me is that he's clearly a guy who has never worried a great deal about what other people think. He doesn't make his choices that way. But I detected just the slightest hint of sadness and kind of like. Resignation's too strong a word, but some acquiescence to I'd settle for that right now, and I think that's.
Could we just calm it down? Yeah, I kind of agree with that though. You can't change it.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not going to happen overnight. So let's look first.
Stop the bleeding first.
Yeah. Baby steps.
Good point. That's a good point. From the chat, we have someone who makes a comment. It's the entire Western world is begging for normalcy, for sanity. Yeah, yes, I couldn't agree more. I think it is. All of Western culture is begging for some sense of normalcy.
Again.
Yeah.
To go back to what we before all this craziness started.
Yeah.
Because it's craziness.
Well, I'll have a unique approach to next week. I almost did it today, and that was the passages from Matthew and Romans, which talks about nations' dissension into utter insanity, to the depraved mind. And maybe we'll start next week's like that, and just people say, oh, what does the Bible have to say? Oh yeah, it's not unknown. We will get that and do that. We are I can't tell you how delighted we are that you all have joined us today, and of course we welcome comments, suggestions. Please feel free to share. We stream every Thursday. And we start always around 1 p.m. Eastern time. We might be off in or out by a few minutes as we get all the technical stuff set up properly. But things seem to be hitting a nice smooth point. And next week we're going to do something different, and it should be fun. We'll be having a guest. So if anyone wants, if you want to speak to anyone specifically. Next week, or you want to have someone as a guest, see if we can have them on, by all means, feel free to send us some comments and suggestions along those lines. Okay. Again, we're excited to continue to grow the effort, and we're enjoying ourselves. We hope you are too. Although sometimes it's not always fun to talk all about the stuff, but it's good. It's good therapy for me.
Oh.
Anyway, so we're glad you're here. Thanks for supporting us. Thanks for subscribing. And it's nice to know that from the comments that you guys have shared, that none of us are by ourselves. There's more of us out there than we think. And I would just leave you with the one word that I talked to a friend of mine about this morning, and you hear it from a lot of really, really good people, conservative people: courage. We all have to have some courage.
We do.
And we got to be willing to say what we think, speak the truth. And that means speak the truth when you're facing some circumstances. And if more folks in media on certain news channel right now and other companies, if they if they did more of that, they would find themselves probably in a much better position. But it can cost you. Speaking the truth can cost you, but it's nice to know that we're not alone. Okay, so thank you very much for watching, and we will see you all next week.
Yeah. Be nice for us to even have an added person.
Yes, indeed.